I don't know if you guys knew, but Corey actually hurt his back. So that's one of the reasons why we have a chair for Corey, because, you know, he's getting, as an old man now, it seems.
Just kidding, Corey.
Corey's just standing right here. He's looking at me, he's like, I'm going to fight you after this. But no,
hey, you guys
no.
are in for it, too, because Hawaiian hair Corey is out in full effect today. We love you, Corey.
No, we are so excited to be here, you guys. We absolutely love Corey. We love everybody here. It's so amazing, you know, and having the conversations that people have been telling me since from the breaks and everything else has just been really like soul stirring. I mean, the stories that some of you guys have, what's like, you know, Michael Sala.
There's a lot of tears in people's eyes.
Oh my gosh.
It's amazing how deep all of this is, and I'm sure you all are feeling it too.
Yes, I mean, yeah, like, you know.
That's right.
So we are over here. We actually are live on our YouTube channel. So you guys are all on our YouTube channel right now.
So if you all want to go comment on our live stream, you can. Not that you'd want to do that.
So yes, and well, what do we really? Oh, well,
we got lots to talk about. We've got some time up here with you guys, so if it gets boring, I mean, we can always just do a Q&A. But we actually kind of wanted to talk a little bit about, I guess, the last few years. You know, Ben and I started watching Corey like as soon as he came to the public, and we were all just, you know, like everyone else here when he came on to Cosmic Disclosure. I mean, I remember the first time one of my buddies sent me the video to Corey, and I watched Corey and David Wilcock in Cosmic Disclosure, and after that first episode, I probably stared at the screen for an extra 5 minutes like this. And then after I finally snapped out of it, I was like, oh my God, I gotta send this to Ben.
Yeah, so, you know, and I started watching it, and I was just like, wow, you know, a lot of this stuff we've kind of somewhat experienced on our own a little bit here and there. But, you know, I was just like watching Corey, I was just like, dude, this sounds like the way I explain one of my insane, crazy stories. Like, the way he's describing it is exactly the way I would be describing it.
What was the most baffling about it was, you know, I'm pretty good at getting reads on people, and I'm watching Corey tell his story, and I'm like, he's dead serious. Like, there is not an ounce, like, I couldn't sense an ounce of trying to get anything out of it. It almost looked more like he was even uncomfortable to be coming forward with that information, which was a huge indicator to me that this information was legit. And then as Cosmic Disclosure unfolded more and more, and David and him were talking about things, I mean, you know, it just, you know, here we are. It just got really exciting, right?
Yes. You know, and, you know, yes. And, well, you know, one of the questions that a lot of things come up, it's kind of like, you know, what can you guys do to contribute to what we're doing, or, you know, how can you be involved really, or, you know, all the different things that you can do. And honestly, it's just like, just do something, start something. It's, you know, if you've had it in your mind for like 2 years that I want to start a YouTube channel, but you know,
do it.
Just do it.
Stop talking about it.
And
get
take
on there
action
and do it.
Yeah, because honestly, nothing's gonna happen if you just, you know, just.
I mean, if this dork and I can do it, I mean,
yeah, seriously,
you guys have a lot better chance. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
we're the biggest dorks out there.
Yeah, we really are, you know, and that's just been what's been, I think, the most amazing thing about this whole journey is that, you know, like, especially with myself, like I knew about David Wilcock for a very long time. Yeah. And actually, I got into David Icke right after 9/11 happened. You know, that's really when
I actually recall being pretty into David Wilcock around 2012, you know, with all that stuff that was going down. And I mean, you know, those calendars really did end then, and there was supposed to be a catastrophe that didn't happen. I believe we were all given more time so that we could be here to resolve a lot of these things together, and now look at us awakening the way that we are.
Well, and that brings up a whole different topic, right? Like the Mandela effect.
I really thought you were going to talk about Y2K for a second. I was going to be like, don't go there.
I thought you were going to say something completely different, but we won't go there. Yeah, but and that's kind of like our understanding about a lot of this is that we were on this dark timeline where Hillary Clinton was supposed to win and everything's happening, or boo, or like 2000, it's like 2012, 2013, because. Actually, when I was a little kid growing up, I always had these visions that something huge was going to happen to me at 33. And I was kind of always preparing myself for that. And then coming into 2013, I just knew that, okay, yeah, this is not going to be the end because something positive happened. There's going to be a change. There's going to be a shift. And then sure enough, it's like, the deep state's like flipped upside down right now. They have no idea what's going on. What just happened?
But I don't know if you guys understand how significant that is, because we're talking about like when, it's really easy to talk about the cabal or the deep state, right? But we're literally talking about like multiple millennia conspiracy to create a one world order, like
thousands of years.
Thousands and thousands of years, and every time they've fallen, they've gotten back up, and over hundreds of years reorganized themselves to be doing the same thing over and over. History repeating itself, but right now they are going down for good right now. It is like it's over, and they can't even wake up to it.
No,
and they're just pulling out every trick in the book to try to keep deceiving people, and they're failing. It's great.
Well, think about it.
It's because of you guys, actually.
Yeah, I mean, seriously. It's everybody that everyone's doing. I mean, if you think about it, they control all the major governments. They control the monetary system. They even control the religions. They control every aspect of society.
They've rewritten every book you're supposed to read.
Yeah, I mean, we're in school, like I just found out, like recently, like Jack Lennon, who wrote the Calling. Oh man, I can't think of it off the top of my head. Yeah, Call of the Wild, right? So you read that when you're like 3rd and 4th grade, and everyone has to read it and everything. I just found out recently that he's a socialist communist. And this is the stuff that we're reading in like elementary school. And they know this, and we're going to get into this in our own presentation. But, it's just like every aspect of this, and we just completely unraveled all of this. And it's just because there's so much positivity in the world that they didn't encounter for.
That humans would wake up, that all of this brainwashing wouldn't work, that people would be striving to be kind, better people, and bring awareness to others was something they could never factor in. And again, that's you guys.
And all of us are doing this. Every single one of us has a role to play in this. Like every single one of us.
Don't think. A lot of people do come up to us, like you said, and they're like, well, what can I do, and all of this. But like sharing content that is waking people up is like one of the most amazing things that you can do. Being brave enough to talk to a family member and try to clarify the truth to them is one of the bravest things that you can do. It's not easy. It's very hard. You get flack for it. I mean, Corey can tell you about that. Holy cow.
Well, even both of our own families, right? But I mean, and someone actually asked this earlier too, and I think the really important thing is that, especially with family members, you have to be so patient with them. You can't cram this stuff down their throat.
Well, and you can't give up either. They're family,
you can't give
right?
up. So you have to plant seeds and be patient and wait till they start asking you questions. And when they start asking you, even if it's like a basic question or something, then that's when you can go a little bit deeper. But the whole thing is about being patient, compassionate with them, and allow them that process to understand. Because it's hard, when you start thinking and grasping this stuff and start realizing it, you start, wait a minute, if this is true, then what about this thing and what about this in my life? Like I've always taught this for like 20 years. I thought this way, and now you're telling me it's not this way? Like, the people that I trusted in my life and all the politicians that I looked up to, you're telling me that they're actually involved in this pedophile network ring, this satanic thing?
Well, and to your point, you can't just come out and tell them everything you know.
Exactly.
You can't spill the beans like that.
By the way, the deep states are in control of everything, and they're satanic worshipers, and they're doing all this stuff.
What he said. Yeah, but you have to, you really do. You have to plant those seeds, and you have to take the time to cultivate that understanding so that they can come to a place where they can start to understand the full picture of things. And if you aren't gentle, and you're not going to have as good of an effect, or they're going to think you're crazy. But one of the things is, that what I find is like every single person in my life is different. They require different ways of getting information, and sometimes when they can't accept information like you all and I kind of of accept information, I just try to be a good person around them and show that I'm a kind person. Then over time, they love me as a friend more and more, and they're more apt to listen to the things that I have to say. There's not one way to, red pill someone. It's a very tricky thing.
It really is. It really is. It's really about being compassionate and listening to them and all of that, right? So
Totally.
Yeah. So my mind I was going to say something and I just completely forgot. So.
That happens to us all the time. If you watch our show, that's kind of like our calling card. That means we're not clones up here. We're really Ben and Rob.
We're not clones.
Being dorks.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if you all have seen our most recent cloning episode.
That thing was crazy. It was wild. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Anyway, we still
have like 5 minutes.
We have that was the time. Okay, so
dude, it's like there's like this weird alien reptile thing just like staring at us up here. It's like
it's really scary.
At least that guy's cool over there.
All right.
Anyway, you guys can't see it. Sorry.
So I'm not even gonna. All right. So now, one thing I kind of want to bring attention to is we were talking about this. Probably if you had seen us earlier today, we were talking about how we were on mainstream news. And when you're actually telling the truth, media like NBC will start to try to defame you, as they have been to Ben and I and NTD and the Epoch Times. Someone who's extremely familiar with that kind of treatment is none other than Corey Goode. I mean, am I right?
Yeah, I mean, seriously.
I mean, now, look, not everyone has to agree with every piece of information, but for real, we have Corey trying to come out constantly. He's been on the forefront of trying to expose the secret space program. He's upset and talking about human trafficking in a way that a lot of people aren't. And then you have all of these people out there trying to say bad things about Corey and everything that he's trying to do, and it's not right.
And it's just not Corey, right? It's like we're all conspiracy theorists, right? Like everybody, and actually I remember now what I was gonna say. Because
Of course he did.
Yeah, I knew it was going to come to me eventually. Because it kind of goes back with the family members, too. The whole thing is like the mainstream media is trying to push everybody. It's like, you're on the right, you're on the right. And, the whole part of this is like, there is no right or left. You have to realize that because it's all the same bird, right? No matter if you're left wing or right wing, it's still the same bird. So it's like,
agreed.
It doesn't matter about that. It matters about, there's like this evil element and there's a positive element. And these are two battles that are happening right now, and everybody who is on the good, pure side is going to get attacked. That's just what's going to happen, right? But what we started realizing, well, if they're attacking us, it must mean we're doing something right, correct?
Exactly.
But,
all right, so one of my favorite quotes from Corey is when the Zen ends, the ass kicking begins.
Butt kicking.
I said ass, Corey. Okay, wait. In celebration of Corey Goode and all of the efforts he's made, we've designed a T-shirt specifically for Corey Goode.
Yeah, blue chicken cult, that is.
Okay, and I'm going to ask the AV guys to cue it right now. This is a blue avian T-shirt. Edge of Wonder on the back. And wait. In the glasses it says, "It's all good."
So Corey, this is going to be Corey's shirt.
The first person to get one of these shirts, and the guy who's going to be presenting to you for the next couple of hours is Corey Goode. Corey, come on up on stage. Oh, by the way, it says haters gonna hate up there.
Yeah. Not here. I feel at least 2 trademark violations. My attorney's over here.
You say you're in a trade.
Cool.
All right, you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, we love you, Corey.
All right. Well, I was going to I need to get a camera.
Okay, Corey's grabbing his camera real quick.
Corey's getting his camera, everyone.
Yeah, so this is awesome, you guys. Like, we're trying to make this really fun, right? I mean, this is really cool, right? I mean, we're willing to make this the best conference that you guys are going to have, like your experience and everything, and, you know, leave the other conferences kind of in the dark, which we're not going to name here. Since none of us were invited.
Exactly. Yeah. Contact in the what?
Yeah. So we weren't invited. Corey was invited. David or Mike Barra even wasn't invited either. So it's like, what's going on? You know. But you know, and that's what this is really about, right? The uncensored aspect of this.
Hey, look at this. He's got a GoPro.
360.
It's a 360,
No
you guys.
way.
This is a 360
Awesome.
camera. Woo!
Is this working? Is this working?
Yeah, it is working. So right now we all got a mic here. So we got.
We're gonna get off stage now, Corey, and let you do your thing.
Cool.
But
Thank you
is
for
there
everything.
anything last words or anything we want to say or whatever? Or?
I'm good,
Is
Ben.
this the clicker?
I actually don't know. So you would ask them. So.
Is this the clicker?
So I just realized we didn't actually introduce you, but I don't think he needs an introduction. You guys all know Corey good, so. So we're at the stage and give it to Corey. Thank you guys. We love you so much. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go through a small presentation, and then I'm going to do a Q&A. Okay. Nice slow effect. Y'all have to pardon me. I got in kind of late last night, and I thought with my damaged back, I would just fall asleep. But instead, I laid down, and my higher self decided I need to have a life review before I went to sleep. So I got like 2 or 3 hours of sleep. Okay. And this is going to closely go along with the theme of our new documentary, The Cosmic Secret. So this will give you a little bit of a preview. So Earth has had many advanced civilizations. We've had Atlantis, before that Lemuria, and before that the ancient builder race. So little is known about the ancient builder race because they found ancient structures but no writing and no type of history. It's like the timeline has been erased of all information related to the ancient builder race. Now, I think we've all heard of these out-of-place artifacts. I've talked to the Anshar about this, and some of these could very well be artifacts that came from their timeline when they traveled into our past millions of years and began to grow a civilization with very little technology. They had to, for the most part, start over again. So some of these artifacts, the ages that they found them in rock and sediment, 40 million years old, 2.8 billion years old. So what the Anshar, at some point in their timeline, in our future, we don't know when, they noticed some weird anomalies occurring. A Mandela effect phenomenon started occurring, and they were able to pinpoint it to 17 million years in their past. So they took a small group, sent them 17 million years into their past, and that small group became the Anshar that I met, that there are millions of them now. And they developed technology, and they've spent the entire last 17 million years or so manicuring the timeline, fighting against the reptilians who are fighting for a completely different timeline. And the Anshar also have a lot of, they observe humans and other humans that have come from other planets that were transplanted onto this planet for a time as refugees. They chronicled everything. And they chronicled all of these civilizations going back at least to the 17 million year mark. And there's evidence, I guess everyone who's seen Ancient Aliens, in just about every text we see some sort of mention of a technology of the gods that they just don't have the words to describe. Now, this is something interesting that the Anshar told me that I had heard while in the programs, but not in as much detail as I heard from the Anshar. The reptilians claim that they evolved here on Earth from dinosaurs, and that there was a major experiment underway for the development of a reptilian and a hybrid mammalian type of species. The reptilians claimed that a human or mammalian type race came into this planetary system and redirected an asteroid and destroyed their civilization. We find out later on that that's not exactly the truth. What had actually occurred is that the Earth, the sun went through one of its micronova phases. You know, it's a cycle that continues, and we're overdue for one. And when one of these micronovas occurred, it ejected a lot of matter from the sun and plasma. And at that time, Earth was in a slightly different position, and it had a much thicker atmosphere. It was because of that atmosphere, that the thickness of that atmosphere, that dinosaurs were able to grow to such enormous sizes. After the solar storms stripped away a large part of that atmosphere, it became unable to sustain such large life forms. And also the Earth changed positions, as did the other planets during that time period, during that solar event. So the Anshar claimed that the story that the reptilians have given the military-industrial complex about being destroyed by a meteor is not correct. They were actually destroyed by a solar event, and it had to do with the natural evolution of species, and the species didn't make the cut because of changes that happened to the atmosphere that would no longer sustain them. This is a really cool image. Steven Cefalo created this for our graphic novel. And this is basically what the reptilians were telling us. They evolved from a dinosaur-type being. And according to the Anshar and others, when they were this small dinosaur-type being, they had a similar ability to some of the insectoid beings. You know, some animals are able to mimic their prey to bring the prey in closer so they can attack them. They did a very similar thing, but they were playing with the minds of their prey. They were making the prey see a mate or a food source, and the prey would run to the reptilian being, the proto-reptilian being, and they would, consume the prey. As they evolved, so did this ability. And they've slowly developed the ability to be able to manipulate the consciousness of people around them to make them see what they want them to see. Very similar to when they were developing from a proto-species. And the insectoids developed very similar abilities. And they were just innate abilities that kept evolving along with them over time. So Meldeck, or Mars, is left over from a sort of a binary planetary system. Tiamat was a large super-Earth, and we've been led to believe that it was super massive Earth-type planet. But later studies, when they studied the matter that was in the asteroid belt and beyond, they determined that it couldn't be any more than maybe a third larger than the Earth. And that it had a couple of moons, one of them being Mars, Maldek, which was a Earth-like but smaller planet. So the pre-Adamites, the Martians, and the beings from Tiamat, they started hacking into this ancient builder race grid that had encompassed the local 52 stars in our local stellar neighborhood and had prevented any intruders from coming in. They had developed this barrier so that all of these local 52 stars, they would develop naturally without interference from these genetic farmer races. Unfortunately, the pre-Adamites, they hacked into this grid, trying to use it as a weapons system against another star system, and they were trying to time pulses with the sun to be able to send feedback through the cosmic web. And when they did this, they ended up blowing up entire planets. They brought down the entire grid that the ancient builder race had put up, and immediately all of these genetic farmer races started rushing into these star systems to begin these experiments. So Tiamat is destroyed, and Maldek is heavily damaged. And on these planets are billions, millions or billions of free Adamites. And these are the regular people like you and I. The elite, and if this may sound familiar, got a golden ticket. And they had a number of motherships that they loaded. There were 2 royal families on this planet, and they were competing royal families, and they were able to gather all of their wealth and technology and save the elites. And the elites left the planet after the cataclysm that destroyed Tiamat. So all of the normal people like us that were left on Tiamat were killed instantly. And in the Law of One, they talk about a soul knot, how a soul knot was created because of the trauma and anguish of this mass consciousness. So we are dealing with a lot of the remnants, those souls that were caught in a soul knot are on this planet now, going through the ascension process, or attempting to.
Interrupt you for just a second. So the fan is actually hitting the mic, and the live stream people can hear it really loud. So we're going to give you a handheld. What's that? They were suggesting we use this mic instead. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt everyone.
Cool.
Sure.
Hello? Okay. All right. So in the 1930s, the Germans went to Mars. Sounds pretty crazy, right? Unless you watch a little bit of sci-fi, then of course that's where this all comes from, right? Maybe sci-fi comes from the real information. Germans had built electrogravitic craft and had flown them to the moon and had flown them to Mars. They had accidents on Mars, lost a large number of their astronauts, but they were looking for a place to build a base, and they were trying to figure out, what they were going to do for a staging area while they were building this base, and they found some old pre-Adamite structures that were heavily damaged. So they sent in their engineers, mixed concrete out of the local regolith, patched the holes, and then pressurized the structures and used them for a time while they were building out what became the LOC. Or they built out a previous base that failed, and then eventually built the LOC, which survived. But on Mars, they were building an underground German base, which they used for a while as they used that for a while until the corporations began to come in and really spend a lot of money and manpower on building huge cities. And of course, the Germans were the first to notice that there were pyramids on Mars, and that they matched very closely to the pyramids on Earth, and that to them confirmed that the gods that they worshipped did indeed come from Mars, as their ancient lore had described. Now, there was a program called Brilliant Pebbles that we read about that reconstructed the Tiamat, tried to figure out its density and location, where it orbited in the solar system compared to other planets, all using these crazy mathematical algorithms. And Dr. Sala pointed out that there is a different project, Brilliant Pebbles, and that can cause confusion. Often, like Project Pegasus, there will be a Project Pegasus that they use at like Eglin Air Force Base for, kind of military industrial complex, lower level secret space program things. And then they'll have an additional Pegasus that deals with time travel, so that you have plausible deniability. If someone says, oh, Project Pegasus, no, that, I was in the military, I know what that is. It's satellites being tracked by radar or something like that. And they can just, kind of brush it off when they have another project by the exact same name. So the genetic farmer races began to come in, and in each star system they were doing experiments on the human-type beings, on animals, on ocean life, on plants. It was a whole new area for them. They had genetic stock that had been developing for millions, if not billions of years without them having access to it. So it was a genetic stock that was highly coveted. So they came in and began experiments, 22 just on humans here on Earth. And they formed this ET Super Federation to be able to manage all of these projects and do it in a peaceful way. Here's another one. So there were 22 genetic programs. Like I said, they were very excited to get access to the 52 stars in our local stellar neighborhood, because it had developed on its own. And when they come into a new star system, they begin to develop and manipulate the genetics as well as the consciousness. As we've spoken, especially in Above Majestic, the two major components are consciousness ascending or expanding and evolving at the same time that the genetics evolve. And they try to find a balance. And as they edit and change our genetics, then they would send in a new religion or a new belief system that would affect the consciousness in a way to, in their opinion, get it closer to the progress of the genes. And there's a spiritual and a cosmic component. What's beeping? Okay, so an Operation Starseed began. All of these different higher density beings wanted to help the ascension process, and on planets like Earth, it was pretty stagnant. We had that soul knot. We had all of these, once pre-Adamite beings that are now incarnated here, and there's a lot of trauma that they couldn't break through. So a lot of star seeds started to come here. Just the higher consciousness vibration of a star seed by its very nature raises the vibration of the consciousness around it. So a lot of star seeds are here just to be, to exist, to bring the love vibration, to raise the vibration for the rest of the mass consciousness so they can break free of this soul knot by the end of this next cycle. Yeah. So over eons, they have learned to control us and manipulate us through religion, through racism inherent, that we teach ourselves, through different languages, anything that kept us separate from another culture, social conditioning, all of the social norms that we teach our children that were passed down to us, perfect ways to keep a population self-managing and under control. In the genetic farmer races, it's up to 60, in our solar system alone, it's up to 60 different competing groups. They all have competing experiments. They sabotage each other's experiments. There were stories of a genetic experiment or a certain race that was developing further or quicker than another experiment because they had setbacks, so they would send a virus or cause a plague or something to screw up they were competing. They're playing tit for tat using the inhabitants of the planet. And somehow they've justified that and have worked it out with cosmic law. I don't know. So the pre-Adamites, when they left Tiamat and Maldek, they left there on the moon. Originally, they had a large number of pre-Adamites living in the moon in this giant base that I got to tour, and maybe when I come on stage with David, I think tomorrow, we'll talk about that a little bit more. It'll be like an exclusive. We'll talk about it more in detail. So they inhabited this moon for a long time, and the moon was it was kind of like a Death Star, and it was damaged in the big explosion that destroyed Tiamat. And they were able to get it here and lock it into a tidal lock with the Earth. And they positioned it to where it was going to also, they were going to be able to use it to help block some of the effects of some of these micronovas in the future. And while they were still inhabiting this Death Star type moon, one of these solar events happened. And they had moved most of their people down to Earth, and they had a skeleton crew basically on the moon, and the moon got hit with a direct hit from a bunch of ejecta from the moon. And I recently spoke on 90 Degree Turn with Tricia about the back of the moon. You hear about a Luna city. And what that actually was, it wasn't an ancient ET city. What it was ejecta from the sun. It's kind of like when you blow glass, it gets real hot. If you throw it against the wall, it'll hit the wall and, kind of spiral and fall with gravity, droop, with gravity. And that's exactly what these spires do. And other structures. There are big clumps of glass and other ejecta from the sun. And NASA was happy for people to call it an ET city. They didn't want anyone to know the true purpose of why they were there, and that was to confirm the existence of this massive catastrophe that occurs from the sun. And the last thing they wanted was for us to know about it. So ETs, aliens, that's fine. So the remaining moon tech was destroyed, and when, I'll talk more about it tomorrow, when I was taken on the tour, they were repairing a lot of it. They had huge sphere-type rooms that had looked like gold mirrors all around, like arrays of gold mirrors that pointed to the center of the room, and then suspended in the center of the room was some sort of node that was collecting energy and passing it down corridors towards the center of the moon. But all of that had been destroyed in the last catastrophe. Everything, a major shock wave hit the moon and shattered everything. All of the technology was shattered. The bodies of the pre-Adamites that they found on the moon, their organs and bones had been shattered from a giant concussion wave. And of course, the remnants in 3 of their last motherships crashed in Antarctica, and jokingly they call them the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. And there's actually a reason for that tie-in. So these 3 ships crash landed. They were damaged because of the electromagnetic pulses and fields. The technology was damaged. They crashed close to one of their settlements in Antarctica, and they began to cannibalize the technology and materials from their ships to build Atlantis. And at that point, they began to go into serious competition with another power, a more peaceful power, I'm told, that was on the planet, and they began to go into competition with Lemuria, we'll call it, and began playing around with genes from all of these different human groups that were being developed by the ancient the genetic farmer races, which didn't make them very happy and caused them problems later. And they were also doing a lot of experiments with geothermal energy, but doing it in not very careful ways, and they were causing massive earthquakes, and they were playing with the weather. A lot of the same things that we're doing now, actually. So that cataclysm occurred 50, 60,000 years ago, the one that brought them off of the moon onto Earth. And then they developed, over the next 60,000 years or so, Atlantis. They developed it extensively. And then about 11,800 years ago, there was another solar event which caused a pole shift and a flood. And this was the flood of Noah. And Atlantis was completely destroyed because of the pole shift. It caused a major tidal wave that rushed over the land and flash froze. You can find pictures online of actual giant waves that are frozen. So this actually does happen. Waves can flash freeze. So could the God's message to Noah, could that have actually been these genetic farmer races? I don't know. Could it have been them wanting to preserve their various experiments? So they had, in some areas, they brought people like the Hopi below ground, and in other areas they built arks or went into caves, other cave systems. This could be why there is a global myth of the flood and survivors who also protected animals. The Hopis, mentioned that. So the elite, the 13 bloodlines, they claim that all of their bloodlines can be traced back to this pre-Adamite group. And how many people remember on, I guess we'll say, the weekly TV show David and I used to do? When I described being, I I was taken to Antarctica, and the Anshar and the Asian-looking group took me into an underground, to a library under the ice, and they wanted me to witness them removing metallic scrolls. And they were removing those metallic scrolls before the expedition, the human expedition, had gotten to them, because it was a history of bloodlines. And they wanted to remove those because they knew that these elites were going to use that in some legal sort of way to connect themselves to the pre-Adamites, or these gods. And then they were going to try to claim that they had some sort of divine right to rule us. And as I stated, the pre-Adamites, the elite of the pre-Adamites, there were two competing families, and they crash landed in those 3 ships, and one family controlled South America and Central America and North America, and the other family controlled Africa on up through Europe and Asia. And when this last catastrophe happened, it destroyed all of the technology, the advanced technology that they had, and they were unable to visit each other. So for thousands of years, over 10,000 years, these two groups were separated. And it wasn't until the time of when America was discovered, or supposedly discovered, that these two families came back into communication and began to open relations again. Okay, so I guess everyone remembers the DIA documents that I released. I think it was December of 2017. Those were given to me by some Beltway insiders that released them to me just in time for me to make them public before the To the Stars Academy and related groups were going to release the same program information. They were going to, these, I guess we will call them limited hangout type groups controlled by the CIA, were going to start dropping information about, ETs and the secret space program, but in a very limited way. And they wanted to do it in a way that would pull people away from and discredit people like myself and David and others that are talking about the more advanced secret space program that they only want us to know a little bit about. And these documents were gateway documents. They used them to read people into the actual programs. I had been given documents that were actual program documents that then got stolen from me. And these documents are written in the regular accepted physics and mathematical formulas. The books I had before were written in the electroplasmic universe mathematics and formulas. So it was pretty much a gateway when they started to read scientists into the higher programs. So the SSP, the Secret Space Program, and the people before the programs that developed the programs, they received electrogravitics. They received a catalog, I believe called the Yellow Book, is a holographic document that was the history of the cosmos. And they learned how to develop quantum correlated communication devices to where quantum entanglement was used with isotopes to where they could communicate no matter where they were in space and time. They could communicate with no distortion. And the 20 and back program came from a Nordic race that had used a similar program in many star systems to help the indigenous people fight back against the reptilians and this AI presence that they are fighting. So the 20 years has something to do with the orbits of like Jupiter and Saturn. It has something to do with some sort of loop that it creates in our star system. In other star systems, they may have 15 in backs or 30 in backs because of the harmonics of the temporal harmonics of their star system. So where did the AI signal and a lot of these weird archonic beings come from? Well, apparently there was an Aleister Crowley type person that was playing around with, things that they did not really understand, and they created an actual rip, not just a portal, but caused a rip between realities. And when that occurred, this electromagnetic intelligence, mass consciousness intelligence, bled through from another reality into ours. And when it did, it looked at our reality and it saw chaos. It didn't see balance. So it followed its, I can't really say programming, but its point of view, and started trying to bring order to our reality. And in doing so, destroyed a lot of civilizations that they deemed unworthy to exist. So the pre-Adamites, the reptilians, we have disclosed that they are AI prophets. They are working on a technological ascension as opposed to the organic spiritual ascension that people like us are trying to achieve. Many of these AI prophets, if not all of them, are infested with nanites, and there's a subspace AI signal that communicates with them and influences people. They can, even if people don't have nanites in them, this AI influence can kind of piggyback onto our electromagnetic fields of our bodies and begin to manipulate us, try to affect our mood, our way of thinking, but not control us in the way that they control beings that are infested with these nanites. Of course, interesting, the number of the beast is tied to, the barcodes, and those in turn are tied to these microchips that people are, that they're trying to promote people to have more and more. And David Wilcock, when I was, describing all of this cosmic history to him and talking about the role of this so-called AI god, he said that he thought it was it was the Lucifer force, or the yang to the yin, I guess you could say, the negative balancing force that is used to cause enough stress for evolution to occur, as if there was not enough. And of course, recently, Suspicious Observers did a really good series on all of this, on the pole shift, the stellar cycles. I recommend everyone take a look at that. And what spawned them to do this was there was a CIA document that was released, a more full version, and it talked about a pole shift occurring, supersonic winds going around the planet, complete disaster, and that they based that off of what they knew about the dynamics of the planet back then. Now they know that if the planet spins, that the wind systems are more locked in. They're not going to just spin around, like they had postulated back then. And so this was definitely a worst case scenario, and it's all of the experts in the programs didn't think it was going to be anywhere near as bad as this, which thank God, because no one would survive. And even the Anshar have gone into detail about how our consciousness has an effect on our star, and vice versa. The star has an effect on our consciousness. There's some sort of symbiotic type of rhythm going on there, and that we can have an effect on the next solar sneeze, if you wish, and we can mitigate it even. Or if we need to have a really bad experience, we can allow that to happen as well. So there's a galactic superwave that everyone's heard about, and a lot of the scientists in the programs, they just saw it as a big dust wave that was coming towards us. They sent some of our advanced craft out to study this wave, and the people in the craft, when they got close to this wave to start getting telemetry to study it, they started having weird things. Some of the real positive Zen-type people started just blissing out, and just about everyone else, the negative people, they were attacking each other, going after, starting fights with their superiors. It was utter chaos. And they were able to record is not the right word, but sample this energy and take it back with these advanced craft to the programs. And then they started playing around with this energy, and indeed, they found out that this energy was causing people to react, enhance whatever vibration they were. And this energy that they were sampling was actually the leading edge of the Christ consciousness, which is the head, which heads this supergalactic wave that brings catastrophes and other changes. At the front of this wave is a Christ consciousness that when it enters into a star system, it doesn't come here to judge people, it forces people to judge themselves. And that's what we've all been going through. All of the karma, trauma that we haven't dealt with, issues in relationships, it is all just, it's being shoved in our face, and we have no choice but to deal with it. And that's this Christ consciousness it's forcing all of this to occur. And pulsars triggering other stars in our local 52-star cluster, micronova having pulses or micronovas is a sign that it's about to happen to us. And of course, I believe it's Alpha Centauri, or one of the closest stars to us, actually had a solar sneeze in the last 2 years. So pretty much, I think everyone who has watched what has happened in the community over the last year can realize that everyone is self-identifying. You cannot hide who you are. No one can hide who they are right now, no matter how hard they try. All of the negative groups, all of their tactics also that they used to use to bring down people like us, those tactics aren't working anymore. They're in a panic. Well, this Christ consciousness is forcing all of us to self-identify, and the negative people can no longer hide it. We see them for what they are. So when this solar flash does occur, it's not going to be just this giant shell uniformly leaving and expanding from the sun. It's kind of clumpy. You know, different areas, matter clumps up. A lot of it's going to be in the equatorial plane. A lot of the debris, but there are areas that will be open to where, if the Earth happens to be in this area, when the explosion happens, all of the debris would miss. We would just have to deal with the electromagnetic fields. So that's kind of the giant clock that's occurring, and our consciousness is kind of interacting with that clock. And if we meditate in the right way and we develop in the right way, maybe our mass consciousness can make sure we're in a nice open area and not catch a direct hit from the solar ejecta. Of course, the secret space program and other programs were developed on a concept called continuity of species. If one of these big events occurred, they sent craft to the moon and Mars, and they found this glass from the sun, and they proved that it happens in cycles and that we were overdue. Immediately, they went to every country in the world and secretly negotiated with them. If you give us like 5% of your GDP, we will develop underground bases, cities, that you can put a percentage of your population in during this cataclysm. Of course, the elite people from your civilization. But not only that, we're going to build bases on other planets and moons in our solar system, just to increase the chances of the continuity of species. Oh, but one more thing, the closest 13 stars, we're going to set up colonies there as well. So if the sun completely novas and the entire solar system's destroyed, there will be continuity of species. So all of these countries agreed to it, started secretly giving large percentages of their GDP, and the secret space program was built out, and so were all of these underground cities. When they were trying to figure out exactly how bad this was going to be, and also they needed a little propaganda to feed these countries to scare the crap out of them to give more of their GDP. So they had people like Ed Dames do a remote viewing of the micronova event, and they call it the kill shot. And people, if you look up Ed Dames and kill shot, you can find the entire remote viewing, and it is basically, he is viewing a micronova, and the one that he put out was extremely devastating, and like I said, it motivated people to continue to give a lot of money secretly to this this hidden civilization that they've built. So after we have this large solar sneeze, we're going to lose all of our technology, but also all of the AI influence is going to be removed. This terrible, evil influence is going to be removed. And there was a reason the reptilians and other beings that are AI prophets want to get out of our solar system before this occurs, because if this occurs while they're in the solar system, all of the nanites in them will spontaneously combust. It would be very uncomfortable. So after this event, I was shown by the Anshar right after, it looked like stars just falling from the sky. There were so many craft that were coming out of the skies that were rendering aid to humanity. And they were bringing food, they were bringing replacement technologies to help our power grids get back up, because 90% of us would have died on this planet if they would not do this. And the reason that they're able to come out in the open is because there are cosmic laws, non-interference cosmic laws, that they cannot interfere with a civilization. But our current civilization is a technological civilization. And when that collapses, we'll be in chaos. And because that civilization has collapsed, they can then come in openly. They don't have to, hide any longer. And at that point, we're going to learn that these beings look very much like us, and they come in all colors. Very few of them are actually Caucasian, which is going to throw a lot of people for a loop, because we've been programmed to think that they're either gray aliens or tall, blonde-haired, blue-eyed beings out there. And that's actually the minority of what's out there. So, how many people wanted to live during the great revealing, the time of revelations, the crazy times? How many people wanted to? Congratulations. Be careful what you wish for. This is it. And we were all called here during this time for various missions. Some of us are just waking up to those missions. Some of us are well underway in our missions. But we come together like this. This is, talking to Leon and a few others, this is kind of, we're out there in the mainstream being attacked, trying to bring light, trying to bring awareness. and we're beaten down. When we come together as a tribe like this, it's kind of like the old revivals. You know, you're nourished, you're revived, and you're ready to go back to your mission. So these types of events, get-togethers, are very important. It's very important also that you find people through meetup groups in your area and form groups like this to support each other. So some think that when Ascension comes, it's going to be this magical experience where people start flying around on like on magic carpets and that type of thing. That's not what I was shown. I was shown that Ascension is just an expansion of consciousness. Our consciousness expands, we become more connected. We become connected in a way that we can't even fathom right now. All of a sudden, we start understanding each other. We start seeing obvious solutions to problems, and we wonder why the heck we didn't do it before. It's so obvious. And we become connected and work in unison. War becomes more of a thing of the past. If you do have wars, it's usually with outside groups, not within your group. So it's going to be a development of consciousness, and I don't believe it's going to be a super magical experience in the way that some people do, but that's just my opinion. So the choice is ours: service to self or service to others. I think I know where everyone here stands. Mm-hmm. Well, almost everybody. There might be a person here or there. That's it. I was going to do a Q&A. Did we have someone? Did y'all use this mic?
Is this on? Okay, it's on now. So everyone can line up here for your questions.
No, really. He's the guy that you stopped at. Thank you, I appreciate that. Thanks. First off, I just want to thank you for being of service to the world. You're a very brave man. Something I've never quite understood regarding cosmic law of non-interference. Why have all these alien civilizations been allowed to experiment on us genetically, form a federation dedicated to it, have 60 other alien races involved, and interfere with us in all sorts of ways over many millennia, but they're telling us they're not allowed to help us prior to the solar flash, and they're not here to make sure that full disclosure happens. I understand that they want us to pick ourselves up by our bootstraps. I certainly get that, but since some of the reason we're in such trouble is because of their failed experiments and Ra's mistaken reveals to people 3 times or 4 times prior to recently, some of this is on them, and I don't say it with hatred or anger. I'm just trying to objectively understand how this structure of this law works, because it would seem to me that it would only be appropriate that they would interfere in a helpful way.
Well, actually, we will become a part of, to some degree, of like a super federation in the future. Right now, the universe is seen as a giant ascension machine. You know, I've said before, the one infinite creator became all of us, and now we're trying to become the one infinite creator again and bring all of those experiences back. Well, the beings that are a little bit further in the process, they believe they have a job, and that the job is to help everything returned back to the one as soon as possible. And the best way to do that is to not let a species develop over eons on its own and hopefully ascend. It's acceptable for them to come in and help the ascension process to speed it up. But when they do so, they become karmically tied, and all of these cosmic laws ensue. Within these groups, they develop what we call cosmic laws, but it's basically laws within this group that determine how they do the experiments on the different planets, at which point the beings that are being experimented on get to find out about it and then take over their own experiment, and then join the wider community of going out there and helping others ascend and develop. So they have a completely different point of view than we do on it, and it is a messy process, especially when some of these groups are competing with each other. But that's where these cosmic laws come from, and these are like fourth, fifth density beings that are consciousness-wise beings that are doing all this tinkering. They're very aware of the higher density archangel-type beings that govern the cosmic laws. So they have to adhere to these cosmic laws. They can skirt them, get away with things here and there, but they have to widely stick to this cosmic law so that they can ascend behind these higher density beings. They're just layers of beings trying to ascend back to the one. And each one, the layers below them that they've become karmically tied to, those densities and beings in those densities become like a parachute holding them back from their ascension until the lower beings that are karmically tied to them are able to ascend, and therefore letting them ascend.
Right.
Sorry, because we have a lot of people in line, so we can only do one question at a time. So thank you, guys.
Hi, Corey.
Hello.
I enjoyed being at last year's conference in northern Colorado, and you touched on the 22 genetic experiments and how it has shaped society in traditional and spiritual and cultural ways that create a lot of our current biases, our prejudices, our attitudes around the mixing of race, of religion, and kept us segregated. And last year you also mentioned, and we really didn't go into it, but I think it's relevant to today because we're all looking at a unified oneness in concept and being on the side of the light to let go of those prejudices, that the Anshar, as fourth dimensional beings, would be perceived by us in our current state of understanding as somewhat immoral. And we really didn't get into it last year, but I think that it might be relevant because as all of our biases and our shadows are coming up, it would be good to be able to see things more clearly as we move through fourth density and into that fifth density and higher state. Is that something you can touch on?
Yeah, I'm going to touch even more on it. I'm developing an online course where I'm going to be talking a lot about the transition into fourth density and that type of thing, and the time I spent with the Anshar. I'm going to go into it into a lot more detail, but yes, they are connected in a way that we just can't understand, and they've developed a society and a civilization that is not like ours. They don't have monogamous relationships. Their family units are much different than ours. Everyone takes part in raising every child and training every child. And they see relationships with each other differently. It's not a codependent kind of thing. They come together, they're drawn to each other, and then they'll figure out why they're drawn to each other. Oh, okay, I'm here to help you with this energetic practice, and you're here to help me with this. And then they will, it's not always a sexual thing, but it's an intimate relationship where they do energy work with each other. And the Anshar tried to bring me into some of that to learn, but I didn't do very well at all. I was just not ready. I didn't understand what was going on. My third density brain was like, I don't know if I should be doing this. I just met you. And they're like, you're not
Corey,
ready
does
for
that
this.
touch a little bit on why so many people are struggling with their evolving relationships right now?
Yeah.
That when we are not in resonance with our partners anymore,
Yeah.
as we evolve, we literally have to move away from them to maintain our vibrational raising?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And also, yeah, that's happening everywhere. But another thing that's happening is that as this fourth density consciousness develops, because of the sun's electromagnetic field and other things going on, we are starting to get connected to each other more and more. And it's confusing because, like I was just talking about, when I was told to do energy work with down in the Anshar city, my third density monkey brain didn't understand that there was some sort of energy work occurring. It was trying to make something like sexual or weird, it was like trying to translate, understand. There was no base of reference. And so there's going to be a lot of confusion among people when they're all of a sudden, someone's been, married forever, and all of a sudden they're like connecting to these people in different ways, and they don't understand it. And they will probably pursue it in the wrong way. It's going to be a very confusing time. It's not going to be just a real smooth transition. The way many of us were raised in traditions that we were raised in, I've been very leery to talk about the 3 days I spent with the Anshar, all of the details, because it seems immoral to that type of programming that we've had.
I'm glad you're going to be doing some follow-up work on it. I think a lot of us need it.
It's going
Thank
to be
you, Corey.
interesting stuff.
Okay.
So real quick, we just have a couple questions from the live stream that we wanted to bring up. So Kaylin, you want to come over and, or you have a mic? That's better. Okay, you don't have to come over here.
Hey, Corey. So, sorry, guys. We had to figure out where the feedback was over here. Caroline Guzman from our live stream audience asks, how do starseeds who are MK Ultra survivors and are targeted individuals love, forgive, and protect ourselves so we aren't bombarded all the time?
Well, if you are a starseed, you're going to be a target, and you're going to be bombarded all of the time. The main thing we can do is, everything from stay on high vibratory diets, stay around high vibratory people, or at least make sure you have access to them to help you keep your vibration up. Because when we're bringing our high vibration to the lower vibrational mainstream, it is leeching off of us. It is sucking our vibration down to theirs. At the same time, it's pulling theirs closer to ours. So we have to replenish that by having these types of gatherings. And also, like I said, make sure that you find like-minded people where you live.
Hey, Corey, how's it going? You're looking good.
Oh, thank you.
So my question is about Sigmund. So after he transitioned, was he able to leave Quarantine Earth, or was he just sent right back down here after he transitioned?
I have no idea, to be honest, but all I know is he's dead.
I know
He's
that.
dead.
Yeah.
I didn't get any after reports.
Oh,
but,
okay. Next update, maybe.
But I did, on one of my videos, make a mistake and confused a lot of people. I was talking about the incident when Sigmund died, and then I transposed Gonzalez, his name.
Oh, yeah, I saw
so
that.
Gonzalez is alive and well.
Yeah.
That was Sigmund I was talking
Sigmund,
about.
yeah.
But thank you, that helped me
Absolutely.
remember to do that.
Hi, Corey. Thank you. Thank you for your service. Just to clarify what you were saying about the benevolent higher dimensional ETs that are going to help us after the solar flash and render aid, does the cataclysm have to happen and a lot of people have to suffer and die before they're allowed to help? Or as it's happening, they're allowed to come and rescue us before a lot of us go down, Because
yeah.
I just want clarity on that.
just before the event, there will be craft in the skies, people coming, they'll be coming to remove some people. But the solar event is a necessary part of cosmic evolution. It is the part of the evolution machine that this universe is. And there are some negative effects that come from the event, but also highly positive. All of these massive jumps in genetic development have occurred during these time periods. It gives a massive bump to consciousness and genetic evolution. So there is, and it depends. These cycles, they have major cycles, minor cycles. Some of them are very destructive, some of them are less so, and it just happens, it depends on where we are in that cycle, the intensity of the event.
And this goes for non-human life, animals, plants, etc.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. So, hello.
Hello.
Okay, we have a question where I feel like we have been really heavily targeted, and we want to know kind of like what to do. I don't know, well, I don't know where to start. I found out, for example, that I had been involved in satanic ritual abuse, and I was told that in all my future lifetimes I would get murdered. And last year I was followed a lot by, I don't know, really crazy things happened, and also
we had a lot of dreams with reptilians,
Astral
threatening
travel.
us, and astral travel, break openings, and we became aware of all of this stuff 9 months ago. We had a very intense LSD trip, and afterwards we knew we were abducted, and we downloaded everything, and then we found all of this stuff. And we feel like there's a lot of information in this community, but we kind of really feel like it's so crazy, and what are the actual healing tools and stuff, how to actually deal with this and how to actually spiritually evolve, I guess.
it's like it feels like there's few solutions. I wonder also what you did, because you went
you
through
were so heavily
insane
targeted,
things, and I'm like, well, what do you need to do to heal? Do you need to be able to go to unsure people for them to heal you? It feels like it's very inaccessible, and whenever I try to astral travel, immediately I always get blocked or attacked, or we both seem like reptilian beings, so it feels really it feels kind of, one, that I don't know what's going on. Second, that it feels like, well, there might be a solution out there, but it feels like it doesn't really reach me. So.
And also, we've been spiritually healing, I don't know, we're 20 now, since we were 16, 17. And we did
14.
so many things,
Tried everything.
holotropic breathwork, and so many shadow work modalities,
Meditation,
and we ate completely clean vegan for 3-4 years, and detox, and we're complete experts in many things.
We tried everything anyone talks about to kind of be
yeah.
well, also some of them works, but it feels like there's something where, I don't know.
It just feels like.
What specifically is your question?
Well, the question is kind of how to heal, what to do, and then I also wonder because I feel like when people say sit down and meditate, I'm like, I don't know if this, I don't know how. What is our specific question?
Well, that's the question.
That's the question.
The question is how to.
What do you do with the reptiles? What do you do with them?
What do you do with your abduction memories? What do you do with implants you have?
And how do you also wonder
how do you heal these things, basically?
And how do you also get?
I think the best thing to do is to get clarity, and maybe going to a regression therapist or someone else that can put you in an altered state and help you bring clarity to some of this should be the first step. That way you can have your memories and your information completely set on a timeline and try to make sense to make sense of it. And there are a lot of people in the community now. There are counselors and different types of people that can help you work through those types of traumas. When you couldn't go to a normal trauma therapist, and talk about these types of things, there are people in our community that help people work through past life and other etheric kind of karma.
So,
There's actually a couple people here who's been through the same thing you have, and they could probably find you guys here, and they would be able to actually help you and guide you certain.
thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, how's it going, Corey?
Hello.
I have a question. I'm kind of looking for some more specific details on maybe some of the programs that maybe the Anshar or Mayan breakaway civilizations, these civilizations that seem to be tied to maybe different timelines or our future that are, I'm kind of curious about certain genetic programs where they are finding the loopholes to still honor the cosmic codes. But I know there are specific programs, say, with walk-ins and things like that. And I'm just curious if there's any insights, any intel on how there's certain, aspects of Anshar genetic programs or other genetic programs from the White Hats and from our Star brothers and sisters that are operating through humans that are holding certain codes as walk-ins and taking on certain frameworks of maybe their higher self soul or future self soul or souls from other lineages. I'm just kind of curious about that.
Well, I know that genetics hold a ton of information that came up actually in an interview earlier today as well. So the Anshar don't tinker with DNA, but they do a lot of work reading DNA, and they do work with DNA in a sense of energetically working with DNA to affect people's vibrations, but they're not changing the codes in the DNA. That's just that's not part of the Anshar's agenda, but they are monitoring the genetic programs, as well as they are monitoring souls that are coming in, who are star seeds from which groups. They're cataloging all of that.
Awesome. Are there any benevolent groups there is some sort of agenda that they've been actually to uphold and integrity those laws, where they're actually having, certain types of pathways to then come in and alter
Are you
the
talking about
DNA?
genetic programming?
I'm just benevolent groups that are still operating from a place where they can come in.
Well, it just
directly work with the
depends.
DNA.
A being is benevolent or malevolent depending on our point of view. Their point of view, they see themselves as pretty much not really amoral. They see themselves as benevolent. They see themselves as helping promote the ascension of the universe. So they see themselves as being very positive, while us on this little planet being tinkered with would have a completely different perception of them. We'd see them as, interfering or invading.
Thank you, Corey. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, Corey. Thanks for being you. Just a quick question about the ancient builder race. So they were obviously a very powerful, advanced civilization if they were able to create a field that could keep out the geneticists for so long. Do you think that they were trying to uphold the cosmic law, or do you think they were preserving a experiment themselves?
They appear to have been preserving the natural progression of ascension. They apparently believed in the slow process of letting things just occur naturally as the cosmos saw fit. They didn't agree with going in and tinkering with DNA and the consciousness of beings to boost it. We don't know that for a fact, but because there's no information about them. But that's pretty much what these other ETs have assumed or postulated about the ancient builder race, is that they were a very purist type of group when it came to ascension. They thought that the cosmos should dictate how the ascension process occurs, not demigods and other beings that are trying to boost the process for their own agenda so they can ascend.
Thank you.
All right, Corey, we have a couple questions, or a question from the live stream that Kaylin has over there.
Shaveen from our live stream audience asks, Corey, I feel so out of touch since we cannot watch you and David weekly. How can we keep up to date with what is happening in your current projects?
Well, I'm starting to upload a lot more content to my YouTube channel and Facebook. So you're going to start seeing a lot more content come out there, but we're also trying to release more and more into the mainstream. David's working on a television series that's going to be really cool. I'm working on a movie and television series that would bring this to a mass audience. So I think that's where you're going to see us more and more, is in the mainstream, promoting graphic novels, any type of information that we can seed into the mass consciousness to help it expand. So sometime soon you could start seeing another weekly show. Maybe I'll be on it sometimes, maybe David will be, but there's more coming.
Hi. I think most people that are into the Law of One would agree that David Wilcock, at this point in time, is probably the #1 scholar in the world in the Law of One. But I would like to say that before he discovered it and before I discovered it, there was someone named Michael Topper who was incredible. He completely disappeared, some really great stuff, and he gives the best explanation of how it works with higher density negative, and that might be why he disappeared. But my question is, for you, since you had that awareness of the 900 civilizations that the ICC has been doing business with, one of the things that never came out in Cosmic Disclosure is if they're higher density, they would know that these products are made by slave labor, and if they were higher density positive, that would probably inhibit them from wanting to buy stuff made by slaves. But it's hard to imagine there being 900 negatively oriented higher density type things. But the other part of my question, I'm sorry for having two parts of this, but the other part of my question is nobody ever explains how far third density humans that are kind of like us on other planets can go into those really high tech space travel realms, like getting all the way across the universe in 10 minutes or whatever. Does the super high tech stuff happen with third density humans from your experience, or is it all higher density?
Well, we're third density, and we have the technology to portal to other planets. We have the technology to travel between the stars. So you don't have to be a super positive civilization to develop that technology. But the nature of civilizations are, if you are not positive, and if you don't learn to spiritually evolve, you're going to destroy yourself with that technology before you really get it to a point of traveling the cosmos on a wide level. So for the most part, civilizations sort of take care of themselves. You have class 1, class 2 civilizations. That's just a different way of describing the densities. And the density, all that means is that they have a higher consciousness or a more connected consciousness with each other. It doesn't necessarily mean they're positive or negative. They're, as you stated, within these higher consciousnesses, there's positive and negative.
Of course.
Until you get to a certain level. So there are many, many, many more civilizations out there in our galaxy than even the sci-fi movies have been able to get across. so many life forms out there. And yes, there are a large number of them that are higher density, higher consciousness, higher evolved beings that are negative, like some of the insectoid types and the reptilians. They're, fifth density type consciousness, but they're going in a mass consciousness more in the technological AI type of way.
The genetic farmer races would be fourth density positive?
Fourth density positive and negative.
Oh, a mix.
A mixture, yes.
Okay, so I know there's a lot of long line, but I just want to say, when you do the TV show, now that you're much more familiar with some of the specific designations within Law of One than you were when you first met David, it would be phenomenal to include some of that, even though it might alienate people that are less familiar with, I don't know, because that was
And I'm still just pretty new with Law of One information, fully integrating it. I still haven't fully assimilated it. It's a lot.
Yeah, but you're also Law of One 2.0. I mean, your body of work, in a sense, that
Right.
the Blue Athens, all that. Thank you. I love you.
Hello. I just want to start by saying so grateful for your work and the sacrifices you've made to be sitting there. You've already changed the world so much. So we're just big supporters of you in our household. We've been with you since the beginning. It's been fun to see your evolution.
Thank you.
So I know that there's only so much we can understand with our current human brain and its imposed limitations. But we've heard a lot of different variations on what may happen during the solar flash. Taking David's class and just listening, and every time you speak, a little bit more comes out, and it feels like little pieces of the puzzle come out. But I still have, of course, we all have questions, but I'm hoping that you can explain to the best of your understanding, two things. One, and this stems from my personal experience, I know about all this stuff. Mentally, I understand it all, but I'm working full time. I'm raising a child. I'm doing my best. I know that this is my path. This is my mission, just to be, And but I don't currently have a lot of capacity for meditating, and most of my lifestyle stuff is on point, but there's a few things that aren't, and I get caught up sometimes in my job, my full-time job that's in finance. And then I'm this by night and weekend. But anyway, okay, so my question is whether you're on a perfect high vibrational path or not, what happens to you if you die before the flash or during the flash? We've heard different things about how craft may come down and take you off planet so that you don't get the full brunt of the flash. But then we've also heard that the flash is necessary for our jump starting us into this new density and consciousness, raising our consciousness. So that's kind of confusing. Why would they want to take us off planet? How do we benefit from it if we're not here?
All of the beings that were part of the soul knot from the catastrophe that killed the people from Tiamat, all of those beings are here, and they're going through this process of getting out of that trauma and trying to ascend. There are many, many starseeds and other beings that are here for all different types of reasons. And some of these ships that come in before the flash may be coming to remove starseeds from their group that are here. And some of the some of these ships that will be coming, they will be coming also, to rescue their people who, like some of us that don't know we're from off planet. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden a ship will show up and we'll recognize it. We'll be like, oh, crap, that's me, that's not my people, and they're here to pick me up. Right. Thank God. And then you're out of here. But the process, this cosmic process, it sounds so scary, it's a part of evolution. It's a part of the process. These beings that are most of the inhabitants of this planet that are stuck in this soul knot, they have to go through this process to slowly be pulled out of the soul knot and be able to become a higher density, more connected mass consciousness being.
But then that soul could still reincarnate in the new density, like in fourth density. They can just come back if
Right.
they choose to, and then.
And the beings that are in this soul knot, if the ones that don't make it, they're going to be recycled into another third density planet way of life until they get it right. And they will be living alongside a lot of our pets probably that have become third density.
That I understand, but let's just say you're on the path, you're doing everything right. You just happen to die because you're
Right.
just the tidal wave is coming to your neighborhood. Do you still? So you still would have the opportunity then to reincarnate in the new.
Possibly you, or after your soul leaves, you rejoin like a ship. Instead of going to a white light, you go to a little white ship, in the sky.
Related, very quick, about reproduction. So sexuality and reproduction, as we know it, at what density does that kind of become not a thing? That's my other question.
I don't know the answer to that. Fourth and fifth density ET beings are still procreating. So.
Okay, good to know.
Hello, Kari.
Hello.
Very nice to actually meet you. I travel from the other half of the earth,
Where'd you come from?
China.
Awesome.
Thank you. So my question is actually about the information or the leakage information in China. So we do get piece of information about here, there, some quote from Corey, some quote from David, but there's no systematic thing like how we can, even we don't get a full disclosure, but we do have your weekly show, we do have Edge of Wonders, we do have a lot of information that we can get actually. Blockage, from Facebook, from YouTube. We don't have Google. We don't have, full internet access. So my question is that, countries like China, which is a big deal in the world, how come? Is it like fully controlled by the cabal that they are not giving any information out, or is a way that I don't know, they might protect the people there from, after the disclosure, people go nuts, that they cannot control the whole population?
I think that as, a communist country, they're about controlling everything, including the information and perceptions and point of views of the people. So the last thing they want is for the people to expand their consciousness. So yeah, they're not going to want you to have access to much of the internet, and especially a lot of this spiritual knowledge that's coming out. I know that especially communist countries, they're very threatened by spirituality in general.
Right, but I do get some information here and there, including some of your videos and stuff. Do you, to your knowledge, are you aware of if there was any international organizations that is trying to give out some information, maybe not full, but...
No, I'm not. I know that we were doing transcripts of my information, and we had people from China that were coming in and translating it, and I don't know how it was being dispersed in China. I really don't, but I know that there was an effort, a pretty decent number of translators that were very interested in receiving the information, translating it, and getting it into China. I don't know how my information has been delivered in China, to be honest. I don't know how people are viewing this information, to be honest.
Well, they really, from what I understand, or the people that I talked to, whoever, get your type of information or the videos are actually, it's amazing to them, to people, who cannot really get this type of straight information.
Do they pass it around on DVDs? How do they
No
disseminate it?
DVDs. Basically, you have to jailbreak, across the internet. You have to do like a VPN type of thing. And it's probably, you'll get access today, maybe 2 hours later, it's blocked. So they'll have to go around. So it's really amazing, how much of the information that we can actually get here in U.S. And it's a pain in China. And I just happened to live in China for the last few years. So it was.
I don't know. Maybe it's time that some like-minded people got together in China and started, building their own backbones and different methods of getting information out through, short band radio, different ways like that.
Will you actually travel to China and giving your type of speech?
Yeah. I'm hopefully next year. Next year, it looks like we might do somewhat of a world tour. Australia, hopefully maybe India and China and a few other places. Hopefully.
Awesome. So if you come to China, I'll be your translator.
Okay.
Actually, on that note, there's a VPN that a lot of Chinese people are using called FreeGate. So it's called FreeGate, and it's the software in China that a lot of people are using to circumvent the firewall. Because Epoch Times and a lot of other media are all blocked in China, and this is one of the things that people have been saying. So there's other Chinese people that were talking to me about the same thing. So I just want to bring that up too.
Well, thank you. That was educational for me.
Hi, Corey. First of all, thanks for your great work, and it did help a lot to wake up. Actually, this question from my brother, he's the one who waked me up, but he couldn't be here, so. Sorry. So we always, some of us heard about the upcoming mini ice age, okay? And second thing is about the importance of our consciousness. Third is the big energy cloud of our solar system we've been going through, have a toroid shape called the photon belt. So the question my brother asked is, how can we be very sure about the upcoming mini ice age, but none of them, no one ever actually talked about the impact of our consciousness and the photon belt that somehow can offset some of that. I'm not sure you can answer this question, but what's your take on that?
Well, when it comes to the mini ice age, when we have whether it be just a small little crustal displacement, but in addition to that, volcanoes go off. We have all of this debris that goes in the air and it blocks the sun. And there's a short mini ice age that occurs on a cyclic basis and that they expect to occur after this next cataclysm. And the consciousness changes occur from the solar pulses. The solar pulses that occur affect our brain. They found there's a part of our brain that if they hit it with electromagnetic fields, we have a God experience. So imagine that portion of our brain being bombarded with the electromagnetic field of the sun, what type of experience we might have, a rapturing experience, and a consciousness expanding experience that we might have. We can't even begin to predict what it's going to be like.
I guess. Most of us here are very old soul, right? I'm guessing some of us here could be living 100,000 lifetime to get to this one. But we still live in the third density, and probably the only time we ever know about all of this is probably when we transition, what we ascended, or we, go over to the other side of the veil.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Corey.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, Corey, thank you for coming on here.
Thank you.
When do you expect the alliance or these beings that higher than us that are in the alliance agree with the alliance? Do they work with the alliance? They're going to enforce that the 170,000 nays that are over there, the arrest of these people? Another question I want to ask you. What is really power the sun? We know that there is no nuclear reaction, but the power of the sun and the alliance. Do you think that the current administration is going to?
Well, there's too many questions here. Sorry. The sun is basically a giant replicator. It's taking energy that's feeding into it from the cosmic web, and that energy is coming out and creating a plasma shell around it. And matter and energy are emanating through it. It's basically a portal. It's pulling energy and plasma in through the cosmic web into our reality in this singularity and expanding out all at the same time from one singularity, creating the star.
So it's acting like a mirror that expands the energy that comes from outside?
Well, kind of. It's kind of the cosmic web. I don't know how to describe it. It's like sticking your hand inside of a sock and pulling it inside out. The inside of the cosmic web, I don't know. I don't know how to put it into words. What I've been shown, how these plasma electromagnetic points go through subspace and feed a star.
Thank you. Would you please invite Gonzalez next time that we have some kind like this, you know?
He could be here right now.
Hi, Corey. Hello. So I watched an interview that you did, and you spoke about being a kid around 6 years old and being taken onto a ship, I believe, and shown some planets, and they were kind of feeling you out. When I heard the interview, something kind of like got a little bit triggery in me, and I felt like I had a similar experience possibly. And also, when I was little, I know that I was visited by 3 beings like all the time, but I don't remember like any of it. Like I don't want to say any of it. Obviously, I remember something. But what is this forgetting? Like, why do only a certain percentage of people remember this kind of stuff?
Well, most of us forget what occurred, so it doesn't change us in profound ways. They want us to pretty much live a normal life. That's why some ETs will sneak in, take us, do experiments on us, erase all of the memory and put us back, because they don't want to affect the natural progression of the experiment, because then we'll start talking about we'll all have connecting stories about a certain type of ET that looks the same, and then we'll come together and legitimize the story. So they have to we have to be ignorant of what's going on.
Okay.
Now, as far as what's interesting about the story that I told about being taken onto the craft with Nordic beings, that is a conglomeration, actually. I was sitting around, I was telling one of my teammates about Roger, this story about, one of us was telling the story about how they had memories of being pulled on this giant ship with Nordic beings and being given a puzzle. And when you passed it, they take you to a console and start asking you, where do you come from? Showing you different planetary systems. And Roger had this partial memory. I had a partial memory. And what freaked me out is I had been told, like, decade at least earlier, a friend had told me that type of experience that he had. So I felt it was important to get that story out, is because many people out there have had that experience. And you would not believe how many emails and contacts that I've had just from that one scene, that one little animated scene that depicted it. So many people have said they have memories, or just pieces of memories. We put together that whole scene basically from our different memories to help reconstruct exactly what fully occurred. But many people have little bits and pieces of that same type of scenario in their memories.
Yeah, that's basically all I have is little bits and pieces where I went before I was like taken or whatever. And like them being there, but not really anything specific. Like it's just kind of, so I guess it's just another distraction to keep us, if, you know, Like, in other words, what you were saying is that it kind of gets us off track.
Well, and they don't really, I mean, us remembering, they don't, who cares? They, we're just the experiment.
Right.
They pull us out, get what information they need from us, find out what they need to find out, and then they put us back in the cage, to play around with the other rats.
Right.
They don't want the rats to be worried about the hand that keeps reaching in the cage.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hi, Corey. Good to see you again. My question is to you is, how did you and your family cope with what you've been going through? Because I've been going through similar changes, like having dreams, including you in. And in the dream, there was a guy with long blonde hair and a grey. How would you explain that to your loved ones?
As far as how do we deal with everything that we're going through, I mean, my family, they have experiences that we keep very private that have been challenging. But one of the biggest challenges my family has had to deal with are the last year of attacks, the defamation. People try to actually frame me for a felony that someone else could. There's craziness trying to discredit me, and it's hurt, relationships on my team. It's hurt relationships, between family members. It's been very destructive. So, we've had we're coping with it as it comes, as it happens. And if we didn't have people in the community that were fervently praying for us and supporting us, we would not have made it. We had people that were helping us when we were being blacklisted, and certain groups were doing everything they could to blacklist us and make sure that we couldn't make any money whatsoever. We had people helping us keep our kids in schools where they're actually getting the first progress they've ever had, people helping us with legal and financial issues and getting projects off the ground, people from the community that stepped up to help us and kept us from collapsing. If it wasn't for the various people, some of the people are here tonight, if it wasn't for some of those various people, we would have collapsed. So, yeah. The community is what's helped us cope. The community.
And about the dreams, what do you think about the dreams?
Remind me of the dream.
Well, I'm dreaming, you're in my dreams with a guy with long blonde hair and a grey. And I've had 3 dreams with...
Yeah. Okay, well,
yeah.
The Anshar told, because I have people emailing me all the time. Many of the times people, they're in a classroom environment and I'm up there teaching. Yeah. And I'm the last person that would ever teach in a classroom. These beings are told that I'm being used as an avatar by people's higher selves to bridge the gulf and to deliver information. And I am appearing in a lot of people's dreams as an avatar. And I'm also told that I'm actually doing work in my dreams with groups of people. So that's actually happening as well. But on some level, a lot of the people that are experiencing me in their dreams, it's their higher self using me as an avatar to communicate with certain concepts to them.
Thanks a lot, Corey.
And it's pretty weird when you have thousands of people telling you that they're dreaming about you. That's a whole new level. Some of them can be creepy. Apparently there was this, I'm being sued by one person because I was somehow stealing their dreams and using the content as my life story. And actually, apparently, her and I became married in this dimension, and I was cheating on her with my wife. So, interesting.
Hey, Corey, thank you so much for being here. And also, just a quick shout out to Ben and Rob. They're awesome in that last episode. Holy cow. Yeah, if you haven't seen the last episode, check it out. It's really cool. So 2 real short questions. One, are you familiar with the video game Mass Effect?
I've heard of it.
Okay, real quick. It came out in 2017, so it's like more than a decade ago. It's really trippy, the correlations to what you talk about. They have an ancient builder race, they have an evil AI signal, they have an ancient grid, and they have aliens in that video game with a lot of supernatural abilities.
Weird.
So just going off from that question to number 2, when can we start hearing more from like just people related to these conferences about the organic technology of the self? I think there's a lot of heart fields like Nassim Haramein, they did an event earlier this month, and one of the components was talking about that magnetic signal that's coming out from the heart. Because I think there's a lot of people, especially here, that their signals are starting to really come out, and maybe it'd just be good to learn more about it.
Yeah, quite honestly, I started learning more and more about energy work from the Anshar because they've been trying to get me to do different types of energy work. And I've always been really weird about letting people touch me and work with my energy. I'm just very strange. I've been very weird about who I've let do that. And it's just recently that I've been doing, allowing myself to experience that. And I've been blown away. I wrote on Facebook recently, I went and had a JSJ session. Caressa Ayers, who's actually here with a lot of our other people doing great healing. Where are they at? Out in the park, yeah. And there's a healing room too. I encourage everyone to visit and try to get a JSJ or another type of session to experience it for yourself. When I was laying on the table and I actually felt energy being moved around in my body, almost like dominoes. It was just being moved around. It was amazing. And that type of work can be very beneficial for keeping your vibration where it needs to be and help you get rid of entity attachments and other negative attachments.
Awesome, thank you.
JSJ, I don't know, I can't. Is that Caressa? Yeah.
Jin Shin Jitsu.
Jin Shin Jitsu.
Say that.
JSJ.
Corey, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
You're probably the only person who can, I guess, answer this. I was wondering if you would.
No pressure.
No pressure. If you've shared this before in other videos, if you would share with me the history of other folks who kind of look like me, like the Olmecas.
I can't see you.
Of the Olmeca people.
Oh, okay.
Because you mentioned that they came here, hang out for a little bit, and they left.
Yes. When they were going through solar cataclysms on their planet and also dealing with the reptilian AI infestation, they were bringing refugees from their home planet here to exist for hundreds and thousands of years while things were rebalanced in their star system, and then they were brought back.
All the royals, right?
I'm sorry?
All the royals.
Well, all of the, when they would bring different refugees from different planets here, they would begin to mingle with other refugees and other groups and begin to mix their blood. And often what would happen is at the end of a time when they're done being refugees, they would take the pure-blooded back to the planet so not to disrupt that genetic stock. And then the people that were left here, the remnants were left here, and they would carry on traditions and myths and history.
Cool. Thank you.
Hello, Corey.
Hello.
Of course, I have a lot of questions, but I usually try to hold them and work with my higher self and apply the law of one and other principles. And usually, my higher self answers more love. So the only thing I have to say is just a request. It's my first time ever coming to an event like this, and I would love for the next time for there to be a room reserved for dancing. Because I am just overjoyed being here. I just feel like at home, I can freely speak, and I can barely contain my body.
Well, this is just the first day. By tomorrow, people will be dancing in the aisles, and you'll see.
Yeah, and actually outside at the park, they're having a dance thing every night.
Dancing in the park.
Yeah. So even tonight, and there's like the tea house and then the dance party thing going on tonight. So.
Or we can get a drum circle going, and you can like bust a move in the middle, and we can.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, Corey.
Hello.
So I'd just like to begin by saying I'm grateful for this presence here, and I'd like to share an experience I had with you. I was at Rhythmia in Costa Rica.
Can you talk closer to the mic? Thanks.
I was at Rhythmia in Costa Rica, Rhythmia Life Advancement Center, and I had this experience where I created 4 pillars around me, and I created fire around those pillars. In the center, there was a bubble created from pentagrams or hexagrams, and inside that was a white triangle. And when I went inside this white triangle, I come out and I saw like a tall being, had like a long silver skin, 2 eyes on the outside and 2 eyes in the center. And it was a common theme to be a guard of sorts to a utopian societies, and the gates are always as tall as the eye can see. And there was 3 podiums. There's one here where I was sitting, and I was one of these beings, one opposite me, and there was one to the right that was even higher. And this was like the gates to one of these utopian societies, and I'm not sure about if these are here on Earth or these are perhaps in the Pleiades, which I thought was. So I guess my question could be, do you think that is perhaps something in the inner Earth or somewhere else out in the galaxy?
You know, I couldn't tell you. We often speak about extraterrestrials, but what we deal with more than anything else are extra dimensionals.
Mm-hmm.
These beings that have an ability to come into our reality, into our dimension from other realms.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them, they're able to, if there's a natural portal area or an area like Isetti Ranch, where they have all of this crazy electrical node activity, these beings are able to just grab this energy and use it, this raw energy and use it, and it's an area that it's a portal, it's a way through, and these beings are coming through all of the time. So some of these beings that you witness could be extra dimensional beings and not necessarily a being from inner Earth or from another planet. It's very complicated.
Yeah.
We have temporal beings, coming from different timelines, different realities. It's a very crowded field.
And do you know the Laniakea?
Do I know what?
The Laniakea.
I'm not familiar with that.
It's like, I've seen it on one of these albums on what someone did an EP, and it's like the cosmic web. It looks sort of like a feather, and it was like going into this. It was into like the light, like sort of like the Big Bang light, and then into that light there was even more utopian societies with towers that spanned from the very bottom, and then you could see they'd just go up to infinity,
Yes, sounds more extra dimensional than something that would be another planet.
Right. It's very exciting just to be here. I'm actually lost for words, apparently, almost.
Yeah.
So just thank you for everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Corey. I study holistic medicine, specifically Chinese medicine, and I've had a teacher tell me that there's a legend that extraterrestrials came down on a mountain and gave, meridian theory and acupuncture to the Chinese. And there's also a lot of, just in our community, people disagreeing with everything, and I know there's a lot of healing technology that exists, and I'm wondering if it uses meridian theory or chakras, or if it's just some completely different system that they use for healing.
Well, they have different types of technologies that use all of that. Technologies that are like they have an antenna that reads every bioneural field around, and like in you, there are all these different bacteria, viruses, everything that make up who we are, and external like viruses or things like cancer, they have their own bioneural field, and they can the antenna will pick up that frequency, and they'll identify, oh, there are these different ailments in this person that are developing and will become a problem later. And then they have a broadcasting antenna that puts out a null wave that just shuts off these diseases.
So it's more about like frequency and light?
In some. Like I said, some of the technologies work more with our energy centers, affecting the body's ability to take care of itself. I mean, there are all different levels and types of technologies that work with us energetically.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Corey.
Hello.
I have a question, or maybe a three-part question. I feel like you've talked about the 20 and back, and I'm interested in how people are selected in that process, if you know anything about that. And then what is the age range that people are selected? I know that it's probably not just children. I mean, I'm interested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for the actual 20 and back programs, they use people who are in the military already, soldiers that have had lots of training, but none of them really had the training that was needed. It would have taken like 10, 20 years to train them for the mission, and then a lot of that time would be operational time that they would have wasted. The smartest thing they thought were to take children in their formative years, start training them and grooming them to then be put into one of these programs. And then, they would have someone that had 15, 20 years of training experience ready to go. So they use, and usually you're around the 16, 17-year-old mark when they incorporate people from my lab programs into the 20 and backs. And but they will approach someone that's been a Marine for 5 years, a top Marine, highly intelligent, very healthy, meets all their criteria, and they will say, hey, how would you like to go on a 20-year excursion? But when you come back, it'll be as if it never happened. And so they have these types of 20 and backs, but they also have, when I was on the 20 and back, they would have scientists that would come in for like 3 months, 18 months, and then leave. And they were coming in for 18-month and backs, I guess you would say. They were just coming for smaller time periods, so it didn't have to be a 20-year chunk. They had people serving smaller portions of time.
How are children specifically targeted then and chosen because they're children?
They're usually a part of a multi-generational genetic program, and they have them, they'll usually insert doctors in their lives that are involved with the VA or DOD in some way, that monitor these children when they come in for their regular appointments. They have people in the school systems that monitor children that they've identified. We'll give them tests to see if they pop or ping in a certain way, because these generational experiments, they don't always produce a viable asset. Sometimes they will have like 10 families and that they are part of this program, and after 3 or 4 generations, they may have one viable child that comes out with abilities, or none. So it's not like, they're just breeding these people and they're perfect stock to use as soon as they're born. They're creating a breeding stock that they then have to go in and test and find the people who, the genes dominant instead of recessive when it comes to intuitive empath. So they have that ability.
Is this an international thing, or is this just in the U.S.?
Yeah.
Are there specific locations targeted?
Well, most of the countries that were contributing to the continuity of species had some sort of program where they were utilizing children for training and working with non-humans.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Corey.
Hello.
I had a more personal question, I guess. I was wanting to know, after reflecting back on your life as you remember it, if there's anything that you would maybe change, or if you look back at all the different experiences that you went through up until, like, I guess, choosing to help so many of us and help so many people, if there was anything that you regret, and if there was, maybe something you would change.
Yeah, there's a lot of regrets. You're pretty much forced into situations, and especially when it came later on after the first 8 years or so, and we found out about the galactic slave trade. We were forced to participate in that, and we had no choice. Or the people that, some of the people that said that they wouldn't participate, they put in the cages with the people that they were supposed to be delivering to the ETs, and just delivered them as well. So there was no choice, and I had to sit there and watch different beings be tortured while reading them, for the intruder intercept and interrogation program. A lot of these were just people like us from different planets that were going through horrible things. So there was nothing I could do at the time, but you look back and there's a lot of guilt and that's involved.
At any one of those points, would you have ever made a different decision and maybe gotten in the cage?
If I had, I wouldn't be here.
True.
Doing what I'm doing now.
Well, I certainly appreciate it. Thanks.
Hi, Corey.
Hello.
Thank you so much. Since being introduced to you and your messages, the remembering process of who I am has accelerated. And so thank you. And so I have two questions. One in regards, just a general broad question of your unique perspective on us starseeds utilizing our light language in the ascension process, or maybe some misunderstandings that it would be best for us to search within and discern. So that's one general question about light language. And the second one is in regards to our starseed origins. It very much feels like I am a co-participant in an experimentation with my origin family, almost like I am participating and I give consent. How do we discern between that and those that are experimenting with us that does not feel the same? Or because are there agendas on both sides and so it really doesn't matter?
Well, because of cosmic law a lot of times, and it's not always the case, and it upsets people sometimes, but sometimes to get around cosmic law, if an ET group wants to experiment on humans for a certain reason, they will incarnate here as starseeds and give permission for their own group to do those experiments so that they're not interfering with the souls and progression of the civilization and the planet. So sometimes that occurs as a way to get around these cosmic laws and participate in the experiment without violating free will and other cosmic laws.
Okay. And light language, your perspective on that?
I don't know a lot about light language.
Okay.
I've been exposed to divine languages through different religions, and I've seen how they're inspired and the meaning that they have to the people. But I really don't have a whole lot of information on light language.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're the last one.
Apparently I am. Thank you for everything again, and thank you for Rob and everyone. But question, just a short and sweet one, would be, have you worked with any missions that you can recall with Emery Smith? I'm just kind of curious about that.
Say it again?
Have you worked in any missions with Emery Smith?
Not that I know of.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you, everyone. Hey, there's just a couple quick updates that Rob and I forgot to say in the Zoomer room. The community workshops have been moved to the Zoomer room, and if you're, that's for basically it's creating a space where the community can present their offerings to the audience. So if you want to know more, you can go to the information booth. And Corey, actually, something that I actually had a quick question. Something that you and I talked about in Cosmic Waves about your wife. I always assumed, I'm sure, because I've never heard you talk about this, that I always assumed, because you guys have been married for a long time, that your wife always knew all about you. And I was shocked by your answer, what you told me. And I thought this would be a good time for you to kind of talk about that.
That she always knew about me?
Yeah, well, I knew about your experience.
Oh, no, she didn't.
Yeah, because I was shocked, and I was like, I don't think you've ever said that before. And you were like, yeah, we should do something. So I thought it would be good for you to tell everybody about that.
Yeah, she sort of found out when the first person that interviewed me was in our house interviewing me, and she was pacing around going, oh my God, what is this? Oh my God. And just prior to that, she had read the book, Break the Habit of Being Yourself, and she had this massive download. And she said that if she hadn't have read that book first and had this weird awakening that before I was finished telling my story on the couch, she would have had the car packed with the kids and headed to Missouri, I wasn't able to tell anyone any of that. I had a couple of friends that I would tell bits and pieces to, but Texas, it's like the buckle of the Bible Belt. The minute I mentioned ETs, they would, scream demons and all of that. So I couldn't tell anyone. There was no way. And it wasn't until, maybe 6 months before I started shooting the weekly show with David that came out.
And you guys have been married for like 20 years, right? About
27.
27.
Yeah.
I see. These are like things I don't think a lot of people knew, so I wanted to bring this up. So. Well, everyone, I think that's all we have for tonight. I mean, you've been talking for a long time, so we want to thank Corey for, we're finishing up, right? So yeah, we want to thank Corey for being here.
Thank you.
It's amazing, absolutely amazing, right?
Thank you.
So thank you guys, thank you, all your questions.
Your search for truth and deeper meaning has led you here.
Everyone in the UFO community is faced with how do you navigate a course through material that encompasses ancient civilizations, extraterrestrials, secret societies, and what is the relationship between those and the governance of our modern world?
There is more to this reality than you are being told.
A good starting point is to rethink everything that we thought we knew about history.
We don't even know our own potential as human beings.
I'm a researcher. I was an FBI special agent. I'm a secret space program whistleblower. Because of my unprecedented access in the programs, I was able to learn about an ancient race that referred to as the Goode race.
They are the most evolved extraterrestrial group that has ever been involved with humanity.
They take a genetic approach to help them manage this great experiment, humanity. They also bring us various belief systems.
Isn't it interesting? All of the religious traditions on Earth has end with a catastrophic event. We have this evidence hidden out in the open, but we don't ask the deeper questions.
The CIA declassified a document that describes a cataclysmic series of events.
The main message from these ETs are for us to prepare ourselves for this coming event.
This so-called apocalypse is actually not gloom and doom. It's a rebirth. There will be a whole new beginning.
Whoa, look at that, look at that!
Insiders are telling me this will lead to some evolutionary leap in what it means to be human.